Good afternoon. I'm Garrett Burdan with the Institute of Child Nutrition, and I would like to welcome you to the October 2023 CICN webinar, Strategies for Training Staff on Using Kitchen Equipment. As a reminder, during today's webinar, all attendees are muted. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, please type it into the question box on your screen. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but due to our time constraints, every question may not get answered during the webinar. After the webinar ends, a link to complete a short survey will appear. Please complete the evaluation survey. 24 hours after the webinar, individuals who have registered will receive a follow-up email. The email contains a recording link of this webinar available on iLearn, ICN's online learning platform, and a link to the evaluation survey in case you missed the pop-up link. ICN will send out certificates within 24 hours. The ICN and USDA Food and Nutrition Service launched the Culinary Institute of Child Nutrition in 2018 to assist in meeting the unique training, technical assistance, and professional development needs of child nutrition professionals. We work to help child nutrition professionals develop goals and implement best practices to improve the culinary aspect of program operations. Please visit the Culinary Institute of Child Nutrition online for tips and strategies for preparing and serving healthy, culinary-inspired meals. Thank you again for joining today's webinar. The topics covered in today's webinar fall under key areas 2 and 3, operations and administration, and meet the USDA Professional Standards Codes 2100 and 3400. Modern commercial kitchen equipment offers more features and technology than ever before. Does your staff know how to use each piece of equipment in your program's kitchen? In this webinar, we will discuss practices for training staff on using new and existing kitchen equipment. Presenters will also highlight the importance of establishing policies and procedures for training staff and how to establish an annual training calendar. The learning objectives for today's webinar are: identify and describe key features and technology in modern commercial equipment, discuss best practices for training kitchen staff in the operation of both new and existing kitchen equipment, and recognize the importance of establishing an annual training calendar for kitchen staff that includes regular equipment training. Our guest presenter for today is Mike Burke. Mike Burke is a school nutrition advocate and equipment procurement specialist with 40 years in equipment and supplies sales and product management. Mike has also spent the last 10 years as the National K-12 Ambassador for Vulcan FEG. Mike is active in the School Nutrition Association and currently sits on the School Nutrition Foundation Board. Mike has attended the SNA National Legislative Action Conference in Washington, D.C., as well as many state legislative conferences to brief congressional staff on the importance of school nutrition. Mike is also a member of the School Nutrition Association, Procurement, Ethics, and Block Grant Prevention Task Forces. During ANC 2017, Mike was recognized by his peers as the Industry Member of the Year. We are really grateful to have Mike with us today. Our second guest today is Alexandra Epstein-Solfield. Alexandra is the Child Nutrition Director for Ellensburg School District located in Washington State. As a registered dietitian and school nutrition specialist, she believes good food and nutrition is the foundation to learning. Recent initiatives she has introduced within her program include expanding farm-to-school offerings, reintroducing scratch recipes to the menus, and offering regular staff training and opportunities for engagement. We're also very grateful that Alexandra could join us today. To kick off today's webinar topic, I would like to begin by sharing a few ICN training resources that may be useful as you consider coaching and training your staff on using kitchen equipment. Both resources are available in iLearn as self-paced training modules. The first course focuses on coaching, and the second course is all about effectively teaching adult learners. Be sure to check those out as you embark on this journey to train your staff. Coming soon from the CICN is a new set of Culinary Quick Bites short format trainings, including demonstration videos for small appliances and small equipment. You can find those on the CICN website by the end of the calendar year. Now I would like to welcome Mike Burke.
Thank you for the introduction, Garrett. One of my slides. There. Okay. Secrets to a well-run kitchen. My disclosure page, nothing relative since I'm retired, and I'm doing this on the behalf of ICN. What we'll learn today is to become familiar with different food service activities. We'll have an appreciation of the benefits of keeping your equipment season ready and awareness of the challenges of keeping your equipment ready. This is some key health risk factors from the South Carolina Department of Health and Education. It's a little bit old, but I think it's still pertinent today. And we have 5 key areas: improper holding temperature, inadequate cooking, contaminated equipment, food from unsafe sources, and poor personal hygiene. It's interesting that the top 3 are improper holding temperatures, inadequate cooking, and contaminated equipment. That leads to health risks. From an operational standpoint, we got equipment functions efficiently. We want to maintain that. We don't want small problems to become big problems. We want equipment to last longer, and all of these will support the financial goals of the child nutrition program. And the top 2, equipment function and small problems don't become big problems. And if you're school level, you may think, how do I support some of these goals? And I always say that you're always the front line in front of the equipment, and your directors, your coordinators, your back office people, your maintenance staff don't know what's going on unless you tell them. And communication is a real key here. This is a saying that's in all industries: if you don't schedule time for maintenance, your equipment will schedule it for you. And that's so very important that we need to take the time to take care of our equipment. There's 3 types of maintenance types. I'm not going to get into these very deeply. Breakdown maintenance is waiting until the equipment fails before servicing. Whenever I do this live with an audience, I always talk about I always ask the question, how many people have a flat tire? And normally somebody would raise their hand within the last few days, matter of fact. And that flat tire never happens at a convenient time. It always happens when you got to go somewhere, or you're coming back from somewhere. It just never happens at a convenient time. The next question is, how often do we walk around our car? Your equipment is the same way. How many times have you just stopped and looked at your equipment and just observed it, just looked at it to see what's going on? And that's going to give you a hint on what's happening with your equipment, especially if you're looking at it over time. You can tell whether it's starting to look a little bit different if you pay attention to it. Preventive maintenance, time-based or run-based, that is just like filter changes. Cleaning is part of preventive maintenance. Actually, it's a very important part of it. And corrective and preventive maintenance is taking care of the equipment, having maintenance come in and in the summertime and clean out coils and do those kind of things. So what are some tips? Owner's manuals, manufacturers, all manufacturers. They're good manufacturers out there. They spend a lot of time putting together owner's manuals. Today, videos are becoming more popular. Really utilize those. Training on use and care. Training is so very important. All the manufacturers today, manufacturers reps today, if they are calling on schools on a regular basis, they should relish the idea of coming into your kitchen and doing some additional training. Daily cleaning schedule. Daily cleaning, we all do that every day. You do a really good job, but do you schedule a deep cleaning cycle? This is a time we got a poll. So can we get that poll to jump up? Okay. Can you specify training on an equipment bid specification? So you're getting ready to buy a new piece of equipment, and can you specify training on that bid document? Question 1, yes, manufacturer's rep and service after delivery. Yes, manufacturer's rep and service and follow-up training after X months of use. And in no, you can't specify it on the bid. So let's vote, everybody. So we have out of 144, 29% say rep in service after delivery. The second question leading at 56%. Follow-up training, that's a perfect answer. You can put your request for training, and to be honest, you can put a lot of things in your bid request as long as it doesn't restrict competition and you're clear and transparent what you're looking for. And all manufacturers can do that. And of course, training, whether it's just having the rep come in and do training again, or to do follow-up training. Okay. Slide 9. Additional tips. Worn and broken parts. Have those replaced immediately. If you have a broken handle or a broken knob, on a broken handle on a refrigerator or a door, have maintenance replace it right away. A broken knob, I always talk about a broken knob, like a thermostat knob on an oven or something, or griddle or something. If that is broken and you're using a non-approved device, like a pair of pliers, to operate that knob, you're going to damage that knob, you're going to damage that control. And if you're to the point where and it's crazy, but a knob you may think, oh my God, $25 for that broken knob, that's just a lot of money. But that controller behind that knob could be $200-300 plus labor to replace it. So replacing parts when they're worn and broken immediately is a very good thing to do. And as operators, if you're an operator here, you're in front of the equipment, nobody knows but you when something is broken and needs replaced. Approved cleaning solutions. It is so important to use the approved cleaning solutions. Some manufacturers have proprietary cleaning solutions. Some have recommended cleaning solutions. Always use approved cleaning solutions. Um, I remember somebody used Lime-A-Way. Lime-A-Way is it was or is a very popular deliming agent, and in a dishwasher, you can put quite a bit of Lime-A-Way into the rinse tank or the wash tank because it is a large volume of water. We had somebody use Lime-A-Way on a steam cooker one time, and the pictures came back, and it discolored all of the stainless metal on the that because they utilized too much Lime-A-Way for what was being recommended dosage. So always use approved cleaning solutions and always follow the instructions, and do not add more than what's recommended. More is not normally better. And then if you're a director or somebody that controls the budget, budget for replacements, budget for repairs. If you have cooking equipment, you have food prep equipment, refrigeration equipment, these have a lot of components that move, that will wear, that will fail. So you need to budget for them and expect to replace them. 5 things to avoid. Water, improper water use. I know a lot of equipment gives you spray down hoses, combi ovens, kettles, tilt skillets. Utilize those hoses in a proper manner. Neglecting filter change. In my prior life, when I was product manager for the steam cooking division, 90% of our calls came in due to water quality issues, and the majority of those did not have filters, or they were neglected filter changes. Improper application or use. Make sure that you're using the equipment the way it's supposed to. I go back to operations manuals, look at the operation manual, make sure you understand what it is, how the equipment is to use, and everything. Power equipment that has cords and wires and electricity, look for frayed, burnt power cords or exposed wiring, and let somebody know who can take care of it. And operating any equipment without knowing proper operation and use is outlined in the manual. A lot of times you would have, I always tell kitchen staff when I do training with them to cross-train people. And when you bring somebody in from a new kitchen, let's say you bring somebody from the elementary school to the middle school, and they have a combi oven over at the elementary school, and you ask them to go use your combi oven in your kitchen, the brand could be different. And if the brand is different, the operation is different. So even though that they both function the same way and they have the same capabilities, how to use that equipment is going to be different. And you really need to make sure that everybody is up to speed. And don't be afraid to say, I need to be taught how to use this. Just sometimes it only takes a few minutes to show how to use the controls, especially something like a combi oven. And especially because different brands have different features. 5S. Now, 5S is an interesting thing, and it's not talked about in food service. But when I was in the plant in manufacturing, to be world class, you really had to do a lot of different things very well. And 5S was one of them, and it's as it says, 5S. So it's sort. You want to sort your kitchens, sort through your supplies, and sort out what is used and what is not. When in doubt, move it out. Put it in the storeroom in the box for current stuff. And at the end of the school year, if you didn't use it, then go ahead and get rid of it. You know, I mean, even in my home life, it's the same way. It's interesting. I was at the recycling center yesterday, and there was a guy who had all these brand new boxes. They still have bands on them and everything. And I knew that they were, it would be expensive boxes. And the guy says, I got tired of moving them around. And what happens when you have to keep moving things around is or sorting through things or looking for things, it affects your productivity. So you want to sort through your stuff, then you want to straighten. Or in the cooking world, it's mise en place. Anybody watch a cooking show, you see them, they put everything together in little containers. They gather up everything they need. And so when you start the cooking process, everything's right there. It's a French term, and it means set in place. And it's really beneficial to you, and it's going to really improve your productivity and your stress. It's going to lower your stress if you go find all your ingredients, find all your supplies, find all your utensils, and have them right there. And then the next thing is shine and sanitize. Clean all spills right away. Clean as you go. I mean, that's just something that it's really got to be a practice that you got to get involved in as you work through your operation. You got everything set up. Your station is clean. Your station is organized. There's nothing there that is not needed for that operation. And then as you use things, you clean your station as you go. Next up is standardize. Make it a habit. Making it a habit is sometimes the hardest thing, but once it is a habit, it is so much easier to do over and over again. And then abstain. And then that's the real key is to everyone needs to be trained on how and where to find stored items. Things that are found out of place must be returned to the designated home. And then the days of just putting things where an opening exists is proven to be costly with the loss of productivity. And in many cases, cross-contamination scenarios can happen. So the 5S is an interesting concept. I've seen it in a lot of different areas, signs in construction sites and scrap yards, places where you wouldn't expect to see this, but it's really a good practice. And it really brings in, we do some of these things anyway. We do all of these things some of the time, but if we have a system to do it, we're going to be much better off. Another thing from our manufacturing days is process mapping. And we can go through, there's also a different way to look at it is what are the different ways you have to do things to accomplish a task. This is just taking the 7 process activities, which are receiving stock, prepping food, cooking food, holding food, serving food, POS, and cleanup. So there's 62 individual types of equipment in this that you can utilize. You may not have all this equipment in your kitchen, but there's a possibility of 62 pieces of equipment. And this is a relatively large kitchen. Happens to be a high school in Shelby County, Alabama. The equipment the food comes in through the back door. You prep it, you cook it, you hold the food, you serve the food, you check out, you clean up, and then the trash goes back out the back door. All kitchens operate the same. You may not be as big as this, but this kitchen happens to have 102 individual pieces of equipment. And whenever I ask this question to a group of people, group of cooks, or a group of people who work in the kitchen, they always think of their oven. or maybe their oven and their dishwasher, or, the serving counters. But I always say that if it takes up space in your kitchen, it's a piece of equipment. So it could be a cart, could be a trash can, any of those things. If they are in your kitchen, they take up space. It's identified as the equipment of some sort. So it all starts and ends here. What is your backdoor security? Well, today backdoor security is very, very important. Your deliveries come through here. You shouldn't have any clutter here, and your area should be free of trash and rubbish. Storage, you need to be organized. You need to make sure your deliveries have a clean path to your storage area. And obviously you want to make sure you rotate stock. In the lower right-hand corner is storage for food service for school lunch and supplies. Even in 1949, USDA was helping with storage of school lunch and school lunch food and supplies. You can find this document in their exhibits show area, and maybe an ICN has a copy of this. Everything has a place. So what are the food service storage principles? Store chemicals in the original containers away from food prep area. And OSHA requires that suppliers provide MSD sheets for each hazardous chemicals. I always would tell my group whenever I do this session, and I'm telling all of you, is you control that store equipment, chemical storeroom, and it should only have chemicals that belong in the kitchen in your storeroom. You don't want maintenance to make it a handy place to put some of their chemicals, or the custodian. If it doesn't have anything to do with food service, it really doesn't belong in your area, because you don't want to make a mistake of pulling the wrong chemical down and using it in your area. Remember, chemical storage only, no food permitted. Water. We use water in the kitchen every day, every moment. The benefits are to clean, to cook. It's in part of your recipes. There are some big disadvantages. All water contains minerals and solids, even if it comes from a municipal water supply. All water that comes from municipal water supply and some rural well systems are chlorinated, and they have chloramines in it. And these disinfectants make the water potable to drink, but it will damage equipment, and it will cause corrosion on stainless steel. So let's take a poll, a second poll. A leaky faucet can waste how much water? Got a single choice: half an ounce a minute, more than 2,000 gallons per year, or quarter gallon per hour. Okay, the results are in, and to be honest, all three of them are correct. So half an ounce per minute, and the way you can measure that is if you have a drippy faucet, you can take a 1 ounce souffle cup and place it underneath there and time it for 1 minute, and it will fill at least half full, will be a half an ounce per minute. And then if it's more than that, you're going to go more than 2,000 gallons. Um, EPA on their website says that so many drips per minute. I can't remember exactly, but it says you can almost have 3,000 gallons per year of wasted water. And when you do the math, a quarter gallon per hour is not is a correct answer as well. I if you think about it, is 2,000 gallons really um, a lot of water in a year? I had a Warewash sales rep ask me about that just a couple of weeks ago, and when I was working on the slide, he came up and he says, "You have a slide that you always show that says 2,000 gallons is that just seems like a lot of water." Well, it is a lot of water, and it only takes a half an ounce per minute. If you're doing more than a half an ounce per minute, it's going to be closer to 3,000 gallons of water. So a leaky faucet wastes a lot of water. Don't put water where it don't belong, and make sure your faucets operate correctly. Something to think about. This is some random quotes that I've picked up over the course of years of talking to school nutrition professionals. And unfortunately, I can't cite the sources, but most kitchen staff just aren't aware of the impact of turning on equipment and leaving it running all day. That's one area that today modern equipment, ovens, combi ovens, kettles, griddles, they can heat up in less than 15 minutes in most cases. So you don't need to turn them on the first thing in the morning and let them run for 2 or 3 hours. Only turn them on when you need them and turn them off when you know you don't need them anymore. Warewashers and combi ovens use a lot of water, but if you stand in your kitchen at home, you will never keep your kettle on all day just in case you wanted a cup of tea. Kind of a convoluted little phrase, but it really means says a lot. You know that what we do at home, sometimes we don't do in our commercial kitchens. And finally, it's all about practice and education of staff. Preventative education is key. Training is so important. You take it, USDA takes it seriously. They have a mandatory training requirement. It's very important that you do that. And it doesn't hurt to take more training. So let's get into some items you're going to see in your equipment or your kitchens, I'm sorry. Grease traps. Grease traps are starting it off. This is, you might see one of these on the floor. You won't see it like this, but they're not designed for grease to be poured down the drain. That's, we say grease trap and people might think, well, I can just pour all my grease down the drain. No, that's not what it's for. The grease trap is required by the sanitation, the sewer regulatory agencies, because grease-laden water, soapy water that you've been cleaning dishes with or whatever that has grease in it, that grease can go and clog up the drains. So this is basically a grease interceptor for the little bit of grease that's there. Don't use enzymes or solvents to clean your grease trap. Maintenance for this is for a professional. This is something you're not going to do. You may see it being done, probably not. It's going to be done probably when you're not there, but they are there and they do require maintenance. Water use equipment, steamers, combi ovens, Warewash. Delime on a regular basis. Change your filters. Change your filters. Can't emphasize that enough. Keep compartment drains clean and debris free. I always say For your steamers and your combi ovens, there's a drain in the bottom or in the back of the steamer, back wall. Once a week, take a gallon, half a gallon of hot soapy water, clean hot soapy water, just as you fill it up, and pour it down the drain. Just if you do that once a week, that will help keep the drain clean of any debris that falls down. And also, if you start to see water backing up into your compartments, you know you got a drain that's clogged. One of the other areas that a clogged drain will cause a problem is the door will pop open when you try to open up a door of especially a steamer. If you push that door handle up or however you need to open it and it wants to pop out at you, it means that it's building up pressure when it's not supposed to. It means that the drain is not free and flowing. And what can happen, unfortunately, is you can have hot water, 212-degree water, that can splash out of that compartment when you open up the door and you can be burned. Anything that has moisture in it that you use, humidity cabinets, steamers, moisture ovens, combi ovens, dishwashers, leave the doors open at night to allow them to drain out. And then you have other water use equipment like pulpers, disposers, power wash sinks. Make sure the drains are clean, remove any solid debris. Faucets, make sure your faucets don't leak. Make sure your pre-rinse hose is proper and properly suspended. It's not in the tank. Keep your drains, compartment drains clean and debris free. Crumb strainers, make sure they're installed and used. And if you have automatic faucets, please make sure those automatic faucets are working. The hand washing station, this is just an example of a hand washing station, needs to have soap dispenser, use only for hand washing sink with hot water, single use paper towels, and a trash container close at hand. Some general things about equipment. I talked about knobs. Make sure your knobs are in good order. Gaskets, hinges, handles in good condition. A gas flame on a gas range is going to be a steady blue, and the area is free of flammable material. Electrical equipment needs to be in good repair, covers in place, no exposed wiring or frayed cords. Prep equipment. Today, we have lots of prep equipment, power cords and plugs. A lot of times those can be damaged because prep equipment is portable and they get moved around a lot. Another thing to pay attention to on food service equipment in general, but prep equipment specifically, is excessive wear on parts, vibration or noise. I always say that pay attention to the noise of the equipment when it's working properly. It's going to be, you're really not going to think about it. But if that noise changes, question it. Question what's going on. See if it's not sitting on the counter right. See if it's not assembled correctly, or you could be having a failure. Lubricate per specifications, and especially for food prep, combi ovens, moisture ovens, review the manual for proper operation. In fact, you can get 15 minutes of training if you need some training by just getting the operation manual out on some equipment and just go through the operation manual with your staff on how to use something. Here's some examples of some power cords that are damaged and frayed. And one on the right, that's one that is, I think we're all guilty of that at some point, removing the cord from the wall by not by pulling the plug itself, but by pulling the cord. You should always pull the plug itself. Cooking equipment. Make sure the doors operate properly. Make sure the temperature is plus or, well, I left something off here. Plus or minus 10 degrees of the set temperature. So if you set it for 350 degrees, it should be operate between 355 and 345. Level front to back and side to side. And if you're going to level an oven, you want to check the oven racks. Don't check the outside of the oven. Check the racks on the inside. Make sure the flues are not obstructed. If you got water equipment like a combi oven, a steamer, a moisture oven, make sure there's no water leaking out of the control panel. I've visited schools where there'd be water coming out of the control panel, maybe just a little bit, a drip, it's obviously wet. There is a leak inside that control panel that needs to be taken care of. Boilers, the steam cookers and combi ovens have boilers or generators. They should drain when shut down. You can tell because you can either see it or hear it draining. And make sure you clean the interiors on a regular basis. Back to temperatures. How do you check the oven temperature? $5, $6, $7, $8 oven thermometer. They're very inexpensive. Just set it on the inside of the oven. It's really good if you got glass doors where you can see through it. Close your doors, leave your doors closed, turn the temperature to your desired temperature, let it run for 10 minutes or so, and then check your temperature. It should be fluctuating between that 10 degrees. If you open and close your doors on your ovens, you can lose 50 degrees every time you open up the door. So don't be opening and closing the door a lot because you can see a lot of temperature fluctuation. Ventilation, it's something that's up there. It's a big hood, big stainless steel box on the ceiling. You don't really do much with it other than keep it clean. You need to make sure all the filters are in place. If it has a filter cup, you need to make sure the filter cup is there. You need to make sure your filters are clean. Filter removal. There's a lot of ways that people do to take those filters out of the hood. I've done using a broom, a wooden handle, climbing on equipment. But a few years ago, I found this thing called a filter broom. I'm not sure how much it costs. You can probably find it from your equipment or your smallware supply company, but it's just a device that you can use to pick your filters up off the rack and remove them, run them through your dishwashers, and then always replace them. They are a safety device, and they are very important for the operation of that ventilator. Fire suppression system, that's another thing that takes professional maintenance team to take care of. But everybody has one, and there's normally a date on it telling you when that needs to be changed. Refrigeration. All kitchens have refrigeration. All health departments are looking at refrigeration. You should have a exterior thermometer on all refrigeration showing the temperature. This is a tighter tolerance with the door shut and been shut for a period of time. The temperature should be within 3 degrees of your desired setting. 40 degrees, 38 degrees for your refrigerator, 0 degrees for your freezers. Again, look for motors that are listen for motors that are noisy. Look for gaskets that are worn or torn. Condensers and compressor coils and fins need to be cleaned to allow free flow of air. Again, that's probably something that your maintenance staff can do. And if you have strip curtains in place, make sure they're in good repair and they're all there. The picture on the left is actual picture of mold in a severe mold in a refrigerator gasket. And it's if you're in a hot, humid area, the southeast, the Gulf Coast, um, which I've seen more often, probably the West Coast, go and look at your gaskets, pull them open like that, and if you see black item in there, that is from mold building up, and it's something that the health department looks for. And it's probably in everybody's kitchen unless you're cleaning them on a regular basis. So this should be part of your deep clean process. Put it on a schedule to be done. Keep evaporator coils, cold air and condenser coils, warm air clean. Never obstruct the airflow of the fans. Never place unrefrigerated heated product in a designated for storage equipment. Use an ice bath or a blast chiller or a freezer to bring the product down. Putting a large quantity of hot food into a walk-in or especially a refrigerator will bring the temperature of that refrigerator cooler up and out of the into the danger zone. Do not overstock the storage units with product. Air should move freely around all items, especially the sides and bottoms. Food pans should never be greater than 2/3 full. No mounding. And again, inspect your door gaskets. Stainless steel. Stainless steel is throughout your kitchen. Probably most of it's going to be 300 series, which means that it's that if you took a magnet to it, the magnet will not adhere to it. That is your stainless that has the most resistant to corrosion, but it doesn't mean it won't rust. All stainless steel will rust, especially stainless that's exposed to mechanical abrasion, deposits in water, and especially chlorides. I really love this this picture on the right hand side of this leg. This goes back many years in my selling career, but I got called to a nursing home in rural Kansas, and they got a brand new kitchen. They have all these new stainless steel tables and counters and everything, and every one of them, the bottom 5-6 inches of the legs were rusty. And I got, this was back before pictures and, phones and, back in the, I don't want to say the horse and buggy days, but it was a while ago. So I go out to visit this, and the first thing I get hit with when I walk into the kitchen was the aroma of chlorine bleach. They were using a lot of bleach to clean the floors and everything and the mop, and that's where the mop handle, the mop rag was hitting the bottom of the legs, and it wasn't being flushed away, and it caused that corrosion. So again, it's one of your key things that you need to do is use chemicals appropriately and follow manufacturer's instructions. Finally, again, another reminder, if you don't schedule time for maintenance, your equipment will schedule it for you. And Mike's top 10 tips. Clean all equipment daily. Read the owner's manuals. Register your equipment per the manufacturer's recommendation. Train employees on the proper use of your equipment. Perform a thorough cleaning on a regular basis. Regularly, daily inspect your equipment. Replace broken and worn out parts. Be careful with do-it-yourself fixes or ways to delay repairing equipment. Follow your equipment instructions. and proper care of stainless steel. And with that, is there any questions?
Thanks, Mike. That was great. Thank you. You shared so many interesting tips about this topic, and I think you shared a lot of information that maybe some operators hadn't really considered before. So it was very enlightening, I would say. I also want to thank Alexandra Epstein-Solfield for being with us today from Ellensburg, Washington. So thank you for joining us to share kind of an operator's perspective on this topic. I have some questions for you I'll get to in just a moment. But Mike, going back to your portion of the presentation, you mentioned right from the start, cross-training staff and making sure that they know if a staff from an elementary school kitchen goes into a secondary kitchen, that they know how to use all of the pieces of equipment all along the way. I think that's an important point to make. And then the 5 S's in food service really just spoke to me, because it's something that I find also very important: to sort, straighten, shine, and sanitize, standardize, and sustain. That's a really good reminder of simplifying. It's almost like decluttering, especially the first bullet, the sorting, making sure that you've got only the things that you really need on a regular basis available, because it's going to be more efficient to go and get that item if you're not digging through a drawer full of utensils that you never use. So that's a really great reminder. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to jump right into my panel discussion questions, and I'm going to go straight for Alexandra to answer some of these questions. So the first question I have for you is, what is your process as an operator on training staff using kitchen equipment?
So this is a work in progress for us. Typically, when we get new equipment, we do have the manufacturer or supplier come on site and work with the staff at that site to show them how to use a lot of the basic functionality of that equipment, which includes cleaning. And then we do expect during our training period, the veteran staff or staff who were part of that initial training to pass that knowledge on to our new employees. We also make sure that staff have access. A lot of equipment these days has QR codes down at the base where it will provide really short training videos on cleaning and use. And so we make sure that employees have access to that information. They know where to find it. And we actually recently implemented a cleaning log that we ask staff to fill out weekly with all of their bigger pieces of equipment. And if they have any questions on how to do that, then myself or someone else on my team who has knowledge on that will go out to that site and show the staff there how to use it. And we actually have a staff member from one of my bigger schools going out to an elementary school tomorrow to show them how to clean their dishwasher. Because we really have realized this is an area we need to improve on, we've actually written a couple of grants over the last year that have allowed for some training to take place. One was the Healthy Meals Incentive that the USDA and Action for Healthy Kids provided this summer. And part of that grant funding or budget that we wrote included a culinary skills training, a week-long training for staff, up to 12 staff members. And we want the chef to focus on a lot of our equipment cleaning and usage. That funds up to 12 staff members for us to participate. That will pay for the chef trainer and also my employees' time. And at the end of the training, we actually built in a skills assessment portion that if they can complete that portion of the training, they'll get a $2,500 incentive payout. And that is also coming through Healthy Meals Incentive, that grant. We were able to include that in our budget. And then we're also working with Chef Ann right now on the Get Schools Cooking program, and they provide a couple of weeks long training with one of their chefs to come out to our site and work with employees. And in both cases, we've really prioritized staff learning how to use equipment and clean the equipment as part of those trainings.
That's incredible. I mean, your grant, for one, sounds like a really awesome training program. So kudos to you for, you know, incorporating all of those elements, including the staff incentive. That sounds really terrific. And I can appreciate you sharing from the get-go that the training is a work in progress. I mean, I've been an operator before, and it is a work in progress, and it always will be. There's constant, continuous quality improvement, even with training programs. So, so thank you for sharing that as well. I had another question that oh, and by the way, you did mention that kitchen equipment training is included in your new staff orientation. So thanks for mentioning that. Alexander, one more question for you. Have you acquired any new pieces of equipment lately that you discovered has a steep learning curve? And if so, did that equipment come with additional support from the vendor, for example?
We have had a couple of new pieces of equipment in the last year. To be honest, they're pretty basic versions of the equipment. For example, we do have some combi ovens. They're very simple. We stayed away from the combi ovens that have a lot of digital programming options. They're really just on-off ovens with, you can adjust the humidity and the temperature, and that's really it. And they kind of come with standard settings for those that we've, for the most part, just left. That is something, though, that we really need to come back to and understand better in terms of how to use those pieces of equipment. We also have a tilt skillet, but again, we stuck with a very basic model that is pretty straightforward and easy to use. So in some cases, we did have the vendor manufacturers come out and show us how to use the combi ovens. With the tilt skillet, we didn't actually, but the person who utilizes that piece of equipment is really familiar with it. However, that is something we have taken advantage of in the past, and may even, I really liked Mike's suggestion of building that into your quote or procurement process, because that isn't necessarily something we've considered. What we do just try to do is just keep the equipment as simple and easy to use as possible for the most part.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And just for the folks who are with us live, we're gonna just go over the hour, just maybe by 5 minutes or so. So I just wanted to give you a heads up there. We have some good questions coming in that I wanted to try to address before we wrap up today. But Mike, I've got a question for you. As Alexandra just mentioned, she chose a combi oven with very minimal features, just for simplicity's sake. And so I wanted to ask you, what are some of the key features in modern commercial kitchen equipment that help improve quality and efficiency? And do you find that operators are using those features to the fullest?
Unmute. It's really a observant. Alexander pointed out about simple and easy to use and basic controls. There more and more manufacturers are adding more features on controls. The problem is that our staff doesn't have it. They're usually, I don't want to say entry level, but they're not as there's a lot to learn. There are some large school districts that do have trainers that can go from school to school. But if you're a smaller school district, and most of the country is full of schools that are less than 20 schools, it's really hard. Manufacturers love, sales reps love to talk about all these neat controls. But if you walk in and stand and watch the operators and what they're doing and what they're using, they're really not utilizing it to the full capability. I'm not sure that's what anybody's really wanting to hear because, we all like all those fancy features. But do we use them? That's the question. I don't know. Did I answer your question, Garrett?
Yeah, you addressed the
Yep.
question definitely. Thanks, Mike. And I've seen this as well in various kitchens that I've been in. That there is a very nice, expensive piece of equipment, but it's really only used with basic steaming or basic, heating, baking, and very little combination cooking. And the combi ovens always come to mind first,
Yes.
just because they're new and exciting. And but I do think that there's a general lack of knowledge on how to use a combi oven. Still,
Well,
some are doing amazing work with combi ovens, and then others haven't yet realized the possibilities.
Yeah.
For example,
Alexandra brought up tilt skillets. It's the same thing. I mean, it's I remember following a Facebook post, multiple posts, and there's one young, I say young, person in Central Illinois who every time that somebody brought up their tilt skillet, she was like, "Can somebody please take this out of my kitchen?" And I think she finally sold it. So
Yeah,
there's whether it's old technology or new technology, training the staff on how to use it. Don't assume that somebody who's coming in, even if they worked in commercial kitchens, knows how to use non-commercial cooking equipment, or for that matter, the whole kitchen. Whether it's food prep or warewash or heated holding cabinets. Non-commercial tends to be bigger, tends to have a different functions. We do things different than you do in commercial kitchens.
yeah, good points. Alexandra, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to add that we toured a really beautiful state-of-the-art commercial kitchen last winter, and we continue to speak to the director and chef who manages that program when we went to purchase some of our own new equipment. And his suggestion at the time, because some of the equipment he had were pots that you could program recipes into, and it would prompt you to add different ingredients. And again, he had a really beautiful kind of high-level kitchen with high-level employees in terms of their understanding around cooking and preparation. And when we let him know what our needs were, he really suggested that we stay away from the more complicated equipment, because there is a lot of knowledge that needs to happen with those pieces, and then even the maintenance. So if they break, it can be really difficult to repair them versus something a little simpler.
It's good to get that kind of advice, and that's such an advantage for you and your team that you got to visit another kitchen just to see what they're working with, to know what's available, but also know what maybe you don't need. So that was really wise. I'm going to get to some of the questions from the live attendees before we lose them. So first question, does the training a sales rep provides on equipment, does that credit toward USDA professional standards time?
Yes, it's I don't know what I'm looking for my manual. I don't know what the number is, but it's would be similar to what this is, and I think USDA says it's got to be 15-minute increments.
Yes.
So what you need to do is just record the training, what objectives of the training, what it was, who attended, and put it in the file wherever you store your training area. And it really doesn't even need to be the manufacturer rep. It could be just a person in your operation that is already trained. So it's really more of a documentation practice. You use the manual, you talked about how to use it, how to clean it, 15 minutes, everybody signs off, boom. So yes.
Yeah, great, thank you. The next question is there a place where you can find what the average lifespan of equipment is, such as combi ovens, dishwashers, etc.? Do you know of this resource?
No.
Okay.
That's age-old question that's been asked as long as I've been around. Like a hotel in Las Vegas, it could be a year. You've seen school equipment that's 20, 30. I've seen equipment I've never seen before.
Yeah. That's
Um,
that's the answer I was expecting. It
yeah.
depends, right? It just
Yep.
depends on the use and
Mhm.
the maintenance and care.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know of a resource, but I'll take a
Andrew,
look.
do you know?
See if I can find.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alexander, are you aware of anything?
No, that's a really good question though. And it does seem like once upon a time, it was fair to assume a piece of equipment could last 25, 30 years. That doesn't really seem to be the case anymore. It seems like realistically now we're looking at 10 years, 5 to 10 years. And I don't know if Mike would agree with that or not,
Yeah,
but
no, that's, in fact, what I would tell people is treat your equipment like any depreciating asset that a business would use. They normally run on a 7-year kind of a cycle. And then once it's hit that cycle, it's uh, reached a useful life. And then if it's refrigeration, you probably ought to be thinking about upgrading only because they become more efficient. Ovens are the same way. Controls, maintenance starts to increase. Other things like your tilt skillet or kettles or work tables. Work tables are equipment. You buy them 25 years ago and it's, 30 by 48 table is still good.
Yeah. I'm going to do one more question from the attendees just for sake of time. I wish we had time to get to all of them, but we just don't. But thank you so much to everyone attending for your questions. So this last one, are there preventative maintenance or equipment repair tracking software or programs available that you know of? Or tools, tracking
Yes,
tools?
but I think they're pretty expensive. They're
Oh,
really set up for um, like building facility, type deal. Um, I I don't know of any schools that have ever used any of them. But I know that they're out there, but I don't know what they are because this comes up very often. Same
mhm.
question.
Yeah, some kind of a resource I can see being very useful, whether it's like an Excel
Yeah,
document or something where it's just kind of a basic calendar. You have all of the pieces of equipment, and then you track those maintenance dates, cleaning dates, and things like that. Sounds like a useful resource that a training institution could develop, perhaps. Uh, Well, thank you for your help answering questions, and thank you, Mike, for presenting all of the great information that you have. We're not done just yet. I'm going to share my screen one more time and go through a few last things, a few final things, and I hope you can see the slide that says question and answers. Alexander, give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Perfect. Thank you. Great. So I want to draw your attention. Please save the date for our next CICN webinar, which is on Thursday, November 2nd. This is going to be a live demo. We've not done this before, but you won't want to miss this live demonstration of new school breakfast recipes from the Georgia Department of Education's culinary specialists. It's going to be really cool. So please join us for that. Speaking of breakfast recipes, I want to make sure that you check out this new resource from the Foundation for Fresh Produce, which includes recipes by the team at healthyschoolrecipes.com. So this is a really great new resource for breakfast recipes that are fruit and veggie focused. They're a little bit lower in sugar. So check that out. The link I know is large, but it's below. You could probably search for it as well. Also, of course, the Institute of Child Nutrition is the home to the Child Nutrition Recipe Box and the Child Nutrition Sharing Site. So please utilize those resources regularly. Come back and check what's there. I encourage you to check those out. Also, please visit our Shaking It Up resources from the Institute of Child Nutrition. This is all about adding flavor to school meals without increasing the sodium, and it helps with overall sodium management. So take a look at the resources there. There's a lot to look at. Finally, I have mentioned iLearn a few times on today's webinar. If you're using iLearn, that's great. I'm glad you already know about it, but please visit our website to link to iLearn. It's our online learning portal where you will find this webinar and many other training resources that are self-paced in that system. So please check that out. And also follow us on social media. That's how you'll stay up to date on anything that we've newly released, any webinars that we have coming up, or any information that the ICN or the CICN would like to share with everyone. So I would like to take this moment to thank Mike Burke and Alexandra Epstein-Solfield for sharing their insight and expertise with us. And thanks to all of you for joining us today on this webinar. This concludes today's webinar. Have a good day.